Good morning and welcome to NewsWare's Trade Talk for Tuesday, March 3rd. Okay, let's get into the action. Take a look at the S&Ps. We're actually lower. We're actually down hard. We're down 1.47% this morning. That's over 10 points. Yeah, it's really due to that spike in oil prices. You know, the spike in oil prices is actually stoking renewed fears of inflation. Remember, the Fed's trying to lower interest rates, but they can't in an environment where inflation is ticking higher, and with oil prices spiking, it really causes a hard, difficult path for them to go and move through with lower interest rates. Again, the attention remains on Iran. Iran launched a bunch of drone strikes. I mean, they're targeting its neighbors. Granted, they're U.S. bases, but their neighboring countries is where they're targeting these drone strikes. These drones are not really sophisticated, but the fact is some do get through. And when you're bombing your neighbors, it's not good for relations. Then they came out, and of course, they warned that any vessel, that's going through the Strait of Hormuz is going to be fired upon. This is heightening the sphere of disruptions, for oil transportation. The insurance companies have basically said, we're not insuring these freighters, these cargo ships that are going through the Strait of Hormuz. It's just too much risk. Go around the Cape. That's causing some significant price action in oil prices this morning. But then again, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio indicated that large-scale strikes in Iran are pending. This is adding to the uncertainty in the geopolitical scene and creating additional market volatility. Now, what if they go after the Iranian Navy? What if they go after the Iranian Navy in the Strait of Hormuz? That could unblock the shipping, and that could, have those vessels go through, and that would actually be a decrease for oil prices. But we'll have to wait and see what is meant by large-scale pending strikes. In corporate news, listen, we got to talk about Apple. They did yesterday. They did what was expected. They announced a new low-end iPhone, along with, a upgraded iPad tablet. Qualcomm CEO was speaking at that mobile tech conference in Barcelona yesterday and said that 2026 is going to be the year of AI agents. It's kind of helping, renew and reinforce optimism around the AI trade. We'll see. We'll see if that continues, how that affects the stocks. But, more importantly, that Morgan Stanley Tech Media and Tech Conference, that's continuing today. And we're going to get presentations today from Visa, AMD, SAP, ANET, SanDisk, SNDK, Seagate Technologies, ETX, among others. On the earnings front, Target's trading higher after their earnings release. AutoZone and non-holdings are trading lower, as well as Riot. They're lower after their earnings report this morning. But after the bell today, we got CrowdStrike, we got Ross Stores, we got Box, so we got some interesting ones coming out after the bell today. Now we're taking a look at European markets, and we're going to start off with Germany, which is down 3.23%. That's 796 points. That's off its lows, but it's still down over 3%. You're seeing weakness in utilities, financials, and tech stocks. And then there's the FTSE, which is down 2.53%. And it's really the financial stocks that are really weighing on that market this morning. And CAC in Paris is down 2.66%. You're seeing, weakness in luxury and banking stocks. That's really leading the move lower. In Asia last night, we saw losses across the board. The Nikkei fell 3.06%, or 1,778 points. The majority of the sectors closed lower, and it's really due to, rising unemployment that Japan came out with, and, these continued increases in oil prices. Remember, the Asian countries don't have a lot of oil. They're always importing oil, and that's going to stoke inflation, and that's not good for their economies. You look at Hong Kong, the Hang Seng was lower by 1.12%. Again, majority of sectors closed lower. And then you have China. China fell 1.43%. It's, again, mounting inflation concerns. Oil prices are climbing. Rising energy costs are viewed as a headwind for economic growth. And these rising oil prices are going to be, inflationary, and that's going to cause their economy to pull back a little bit. So China lower on those higher oil prices. Now we're turning the page, and we are looking specifically at oil. And oil is, gaining. I mean, it's up over 6%. You got WTI at $75.96 a barrel. You got Brent at $83.02 a barrel. Both up over 6.5%. I mean, the heightened geopolitical tensions are fueled that rally. President Trump said that military action could last 4 to 5 weeks. That's a lot longer than what the market had anticipated. Okay, that is creating a concern that oil prices are going to stay elevated for a longer period of time than expected. In addition, you get the supply concerns through the Strait of Hormuz. That's causing an insurance company to withdraw coverage from these vessels, which is a key transportation route. Remember, 20% of the oil flows through that route. After the bell today, we get the API estimates coming out. That could be something there. I don't think it's going to. I think that the real focus is on the geopolitical tensions. I don't think the API data is going to affect pricing significantly this afternoon. Okay, now we're moving over to earnings. And we got to start off with Target, ticker TGT, Tom Gray Stom. They beat by 28 cents, but it was done on lower revenue. Excuse me. You look at the stock this morning, it's trading higher by 4.18%. Then we have AutoZone, ticker AZO. AutoZone, they beat by 22 cents, which is positive. You got to like the fact that they did deliver a beat, but it wasn't really a great report. Stock is trading lower this morning. What's it down? It's down 6.80% this morning in the pre-market. Not positive. That 22-cent beat was done on lower revenue. After the bell today, you got CrowdStrike, CRWD, Charlie, Richard, William, David. Their EPS is $1.10. Expected move is 7.93%. Then you have Ross Stores, ticker ROST. Their EPS is $1.88 with the expected move of 6.25% when they release. On the economic front, it's a light day today. The calendar is pretty light, I will have to say. We do get the API oil stockpiles inventories, the estimates coming out after the bell today. But you do have a lot of Fed speak. 9:55 a.m. we're going to hear from New York Fed Bank President John Williams. At 10:10 a.m. we're going to hear from Kansas City Fed Bank President Jeffrey Schmidt. And then 11:55 Minneapolis Fed Bank President Neil Kashkari is scheduled to speak. They're going to, if they talk about inflation, they really have or interest rate cuts. It's not going to be positive because these guys are smart guys and they know that what's going on with oil is inflationary, and it's going to lead to an uptick in inflation. And an uptick in inflation will kill any chances of a rate cut happening in early summer. So, yeah, they're not going to be too positive if they speak on, the near-term chances for a rate cut. They're going to be pretty much against it. You can pretty much be assured of that. Okay, let's take a look at the markets this morning. We're taking a look at the Dow stocks, and we got Chevron trading higher by 1.13%. Everything else is lower. I mean, down hard. Even Verizon. And Verizon's one of those stocks that typically, people gravitate towards when you see in market pullbacks, but even Verizon's getting hit this morning. Then we're looking at the FANG stocks. Everything's trading lower, 1.5% to 2% lower across the board on the FANG stocks, not really positive. We're looking at some of the news behind it. Apple, of course, released their new low-end iPhone 17 along with the new iPad. Amazon's data centers in the UAE and Bahrain and Bahrain, they were damaged by a drone strike from Iran. They're said to be working on getting that back online. Google Cloud partners with Nokia on agentic AI capabilities. Netflix. Paramount's deal for Warner Brothers set to win backing from the FCC. Pretty much assured of that. We told you all along. It's like that Netflix deal. It's going to have a hard time getting FTC approval. They hired a bunch of FTC lawyers, ex-FTC lawyers, to kind of get this thing through, but they had to pull after the CEO went into Washington last week and talked to people, and he realized they're not going to pass it no matter what he does. So yeah, he walked away from that deal, setting the stage for Paramount to come in there and scoop up Warner Brothers, WBD. Okay, now we're talking Dow Jones 30 stocks. We've got to talk about Honeywell, ticker HON, Henry, Oscar, Nancy. Honeywell files a registration statement to spin off Honeywell Aerospace. Listen, Honeywell's probably going to leave the Dow, but you're going to have Honeywell Aerospace, which could be a very, very significant IPO. What else? We have NVIDIA. Akami, AKAM, is buying thousands of NVIDIA GPUs for its cloud infrastructure. You look at shares of NVIDIA this morning, they're down 4.28%, getting cheap, but I think it's going to go cheaper. In terms of guidance, we got to talk Target. Target sees Q1 EPS of $1.30. Now, the street estimate's $1.49. Stock's up 4%. I don't know if it's going to be hold this game, especially with that Q1 guidance. That Q1 guidance is not great. Now we're talking buybacks. Pinterest, this is the big one. They secured $1 billion investment from Elliott Investments, and they authorized a 3.5 billion share buyback program. Wow, Pinterest trading higher. VSNT, Verisant Media Group, they authorized a 1 billion share repurchasing program, and that's what I have for news hitting the tape earlier this morning. Moving on to our pick of the day, I'm going to go with National Vision. That's ticker EYEI. EYE, Elvis, yellow, Elvis. Earnings are due out tomorrow morning. Now, the EPS is 6 cents, and the expected move is 14.96%. Yesterday's call volume, it's really difficult because it was light. You look at the calls traded that was yesterday, 29. But look at the puts, 29 calls to 1 put. That's really light, but positive. Now, the open interest is 649K versus 346K. Not 2-to-1, but very positive. Major brokers are raising their price targets, so, on EYE. But for me, I want to get in. I'm thinking 26.40. That's kind of my entry price. You got to remember, this market's going to open up down hard. It could go, it could fall below 26, but I'll say 26.40. But I'm waiting to see how it opens. But EYE, Elvis, yellow Elvis, on an earnings play for this afternoon. And by the way, if I can get to 1% during the trading day, I'm taking it and walk away because in this period, it's very cautious on holding on too long. Take your 1% trades and walk away. That's always been my advice. Okay, now we're moving on. We're talking about the hot news hitting the tape this morning. Salesforce and Liberty One launch fan companion agent. Interesting. HESM, Hess Midstream Limited Partners announced a accretive $6 million repurchase. Okay. Johnson & Johnson says the FDA fast-tracked one of its drugs. That Pinterest news is hot. Fitch downgrades Paramount to BBB plus from BBB minus. Yeah, not surprised. IAC nears a deal to acquire Care.com. They near a deal to sell Care.com. They're going to be selling to Pacific Avenue Capital, it looks like. Elliott, it says urgent need for comprehensive board refreshment at Norwegian Cruise Lines NCLH. Viva announced open source release of Lobster Trap at the Mobile World Conference this morning. Importers are seeking their share of $130 billion in tariff refunds are flocking to a little-known U.S. Trade court, which now they got to figure out how to deal with the expected explosion in cases. That's all I'm seeing this morning. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about our stock of the day from yesterday, which was On Holdings, ticker ONO. Listen, the stock opened up at $44.91 and fell down to $44.52. I had called for a low entry price, said 45 low, 45s. Well, it actually opened up beneath it at $44.91. So boom, there you go. But then it ran. It hit at the end of the day. It ran to $47.26 before closing at $46.76. Which is much more than a 1% gain from the opening price. So On Holdings was a winner yesterday. Take the trade and walk away. On Holdings was a winner during the day yesterday. Got to be happy with that. All right, traders, that concludes today's Trade Talk podcast. You guys know what to do. Let's go out there and let's make some green.